Okay, Luis, you're up. I'll give you, you can start and I will give you control.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, first of all, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight in this very important program that will deal with where our political parties are going. Um, Before I give the microphone to Steve, who is going to moderate the program tonight, I would like to say a few words about the center. The Center for Democracy and Policy Research was founded back in 2019 to provide space for exchange of ideas on domestic and foreign affairs. We are concerned about by the way, we founded it, Steve and I, Dr. Steven Sassman, who is the moderator tonight, and myself. We founded it with the support of a number of people, including John Levine and others who are
And
here
Michael
tonight.
Landau. And Michael.
And Michael Landau, of course, Michael Landau and Lou Salomon and a few others. We are concerned, or we were, we were, and we have been concerned about the global deterioration of democracy. And we also believe in the role the United States can play in the world, or should play in the world, to protect the liberal order and world stability. We have published numerous articles and hosted numerous programs on different topics. If you allow me, I'm going to share our website, which is very easy to approach the website. The website is sorry, why did I? Okay, just a moment. The website is very easy to access. 1 second. Here it is. Can you see it? The website is very easy to access. It's palmbeachdemocracy.org, yes, as you can see. And here it is. We have a number of articles. All the articles that we have written throughout the last 5 years are here. We have the latest update, Palm Beach Center for Democracy and Policy Research News and Update, the latest articles that we wrote. You can see them. And here we have the recorded versions of all the programs we have conducted throughout the years. Now, very interesting, we need to continue. By the way, we need to continue to publish, and just let me continue. In order to continue our work, we obviously need money. This center actually operates on a volunteer basis. And the idea is to gather together academics from all backgrounds, particularly local academics who would like to write. So we welcome you if you want to write something about any topic of interest for you. It doesn't have to be an academic article. It could be a document, or it could be an op-ed, you name it. We will be happy to publish it. Our name is out there, by the way. We have been published in the National Interest, in the New York Sun, in the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune, and of course also in several TV outlets, most of them in Spanish. We still don't have too much access to the outlets in English, and hopefully we need to work a little bit on that. I mean, at this point, the only ones actually running this center is Stephen and myself, and we both are full-time professors teaching a lot of courses, and we don't have time. So in any event, any volunteer, any article that you want to write, any idea that you have to promote our center in the media will be terrific. Now, for that, we also, well, among other things, we also need money, of course, to sustain. We are on a volunteer basis. The only person who is at this point making money or getting money is the person who actually maintains our website and runs our mass emails. That's it. And but in order to continue run this center, we need, of course, donations. And let me share again the website. I can show you. If you look at the website again, you go down all the way in the home page, and then you can see make a donation right here. All you have to do is click it, and you will be able to make a donation. It doesn't matter how much money you give. It could be $50, $100, you name it. But the idea is to continue running this program. In any event, without further to do, I want to introduce my co-president and partner, Dr. Steven Sassman, who is going to moderate the program. Without further ado, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luis, and thank you everyone for being here. The way we'll do it tonight is I want to make an opening statement, and we'll have our speakers, our panelists, each speak for about 10 minutes or so or less, however much you have to say. And then the panelists can speak among themselves, question each other if they have comments, and then I'll ask a question or two, and then we'll open it up to the attendees, to all of you. If you have questions, you can put the questions in the chat box. Would be the best way. When we do open it up for questions, you can also raise your emoji hand as well. So with that, I do want to welcome everyone to this program. Fragmentation and the Future of U.S. Political Parties, Exploring Internal Tensions, Ideological Divisions, and Shifts in Party Identity. And as Luis said, I am the moderator for this program. For those who don't know me, many of you do. Of course, I am Steven Sussman. I'm a professor of public administration at Barry University in Miami and co-president of the Palm Beach Center for Democracy and Policy Research. So as moderator, I take the liberty of making an opening statement here. And for well over a century, for 165 years to be exact, the Democratic and Republican parties have played a central role in shaping how Americans think about politics, compete for office, and govern the country. Today, however, both parties are facing visible internal strains. We see disagreements over ideology, strategy, leadership, and even basic questions about each party's identity. These tensions are not entirely new, but they feel sharper and far more public than in the past. In many ways, the parties are struggling to define themselves internally even before they compete externally. At the same time, the political environment itself has changed. Voter coalitions look different than they once did. Media, especially social media, amplifies conflict. Political debates are more nationalized than ever. And all of this puts pressure on party leaders, reshapes incentives for candidates, and makes governing more complicated. So why does this matter? Because when parties fragment, whether over policy, personality, or direction, it does not stay inside the party. It affects elections, Congress, and how national policy gets made. When parties lose internal cohesion, it can also affect the stability of our democratic process. Our goal tonight is not to choose sides within either party. It's to understand what is driving these internal dynamics, what they tell us about the political moment we are living in, and what they might mean for the country going forward. We are very fortunate to have three outstanding experts with us. And I'll introduce each one and give a short bio, and then I'll turn it over to the panel. Dr. Alvin Felsenberg is a recognized expert on American politics, the American presidency, Congress, and political movements. He's a veteran of two political administrations. Dr. Felsenberg served as principal spokesperson for the 9/11 Commission. He also served as an advisor to the Departments of State and Defense, and for a decade served in a senior staff positions for the House of Representatives. In 2006, Dr. Felsenberg was a fellow at the Institute for the Institute of Politics at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. During the 1980s, Dr. Felsenberg served as Assistant Secretary of State in the administration of Governor Thomas Keene, New Jersey Governor Keene. For a dozen years, Dr. Felsenberg lectured on communications and politics at the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg School of Communication, and he has taught at Princeton, Yale, Hopkins, GW, and he holds a PhD in politics from Princeton, and he's the author of a number of books. The Man and His President, the Political Odyssey of William F. Buckley Jr., The Leaders We Deserved and a few we didn't, Rethinking the Presidential Rating Game, and Governor Tom Keene from the New Jersey State House to the 9/11 Commission. And he's written for the top publications in the country as well, and appeared on many of the top talk shows as well, like Morning Joe, Hardball with Chris Matthews, and so on. Dr. Sean Foreman is currently an adjunct professor of political science and the former chair of the Department of Political Science, History and Political Science at Barry University in Miami, where I teach as well. And he is greatly missed at Barry. He now teaches history at Palmer Trinity School in Palmetto Bay, Florida. Dr. Foreman received his MA in International Studies from FIU, and in 2003 earned his PhD in Political Science from FIU. Dr. Foreman was the 2012 recipient of the Florida Campus Compact's Graham Fry Civic Award. The award recognizes outstanding contributions to the development of civic learning and engagement in sustaining our participatory democracy. Dr. Foreman is quoted in publications around the world and has been interviewed on numerous radio and television stations. I live in Palm Beach and I drive to Miami. I owe it for campus, and I always look forward to hearing him on radio on the drive down to campus because he's always being interviewed. The fact is, Dr. Foreman is the go-to political scientist in the Miami area. And his research interests include U.S. politics and elections, state and local government, and the politics of sports. Dr. Foreman is co-editor of 8 books, including 7 in the Road to Congress series. And his next book in the series, The Road to Congress 2024, will be published any day now. It's just about ready for publication. And our third panelist, third but not least, of course, Professor Kevin Coakley is a senior faculty member and professor of political science at Palm Beach State College here in Palm Beach County. Professor Coakley earned his JD degree, his Juris Doctor, from Florida State University. He teaches across the political science curriculum, including American government, constitutional law, political theory, and contemporary issues in public policy. Beyond the classroom, he plays an important role in the Palm Beach State College Honors College, where he mentors high-achieving students, supports undergraduate research, and helps strengthen the academic programs that prepare students for advanced study and careers in public service and political science. And Professor Coakley is widely recognized for his commitment to high-quality education, his dedication to civic and political education, and his steady service to Palm Beach State College academic community. And his combined experience in law and political science continues to shape and elevate the learning environment for students. Okay, so each of our panelists brings a different lens, historical, electoral, theoretical, and together they will help us make sense of what is happening inside the parties today. With that, let's finally get started. And if we can go in order of my introductions. We can start with Dr. Felsenberg. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
Is Alvin with us?
He's here, but he's on mute.
Are you sure you didn't mute him?
I didn't mute him. No, uh, no, he's mute. If you're using Zoom, and I'm not sure what kind of computer, but if you look on the bottom left, it should say audio, and there may be a line
Can
through
you
it.
hear me now?
Now he's open.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
bingo,
yeah,
bingo. Okay, I'm sorry.
yeah. Okay.
I'm glad to be
Okay.
here. I'll try to be short.
You don't have to be.
All right. Well, I'll hold my other comments for later. I want to throw out some observations that I think may tell us where we're going. Uh, Let me start with the public. It's easy to bash the Congress and the White House. The press do it all the time. Let me just say a few observations. A couple of disturbing polls. Been a series of polls about young people and their views about America and about democracy. They're not optimistic. They're not optimistic that democracy is working for them. They don't see how they can get through the institutions to respond. There have been so many challenges to our wonderful, quote, elite, quote, or power structure in the last decade. It's not news anymore that almost every institution has lost faith in the public. Probably the White House and the Congress, the two elected branches, lower than the court. I suspect the court to tumble, and if current things continue, I expect the support for the military to tumble too. These still have higher approval ratings depending where you look. There are some polls that came out in European nations that are having great anxiety about what will they do without the American protection, without the American umbrella, if the pre-World War I politics return and there are more invasions of Europe and more countries crossing boundaries. How many people would fight for their country? I think the poll was at Cambridge. Majority said no, they would not. They don't see any sense in it. They don't have any stake in it. We've talked about increasing the level of public service, particularly among young people. We've talked about mandating the bridge year. We've talked about public service in between high school and college. We've talked about this since I was in college. Someone's going to have to make a bill and mandate it. It's just not happening. I come from New Jersey. You mentioned I used to be Assistant Secretary of State for Tom Kean. In our day, we used to have, limited to high turnout. We had a strong party structure, and we had gerrymandering. Nothing like we have now. Nothing at all. Donald Trump, we're talking about Donald Trump now declaring trench warfare by going state to state to try to pick up cherry picking for seats, and when the governor of California responding. And so they've netted out so far. California picks up 5 Republicans, and California loses 5 for the Republicans. Texas gains them. I think I've got that right. So we're going to go state to state to state, like playing checkers. This is not very good for democracy. This is not very good to erase cynicism in public institutions. Both sides are acting like young people suspect they've behaved for a very long time. When we look at our elites, the elites that I will say have not governed very well, I would say, this is me now, presidential scholar, I would say the last even near great president was probably George Herbert Walker Bush. I joke when we talk about Richard Nixon periodically in class, and I said, look at the 8 or 9 presidents that have followed Richard Nixon, and only Ronald Reagan will get a higher grade. And it would seem to me that they haven't done very, very well. We have 2 Trump would call endless wars, and they were certainly undeterminate at the end. When Barack Obama came in, we had 500,000 soldiers, this time in 2 countries instead of just 1, which is what Richard Nixon inherited. He only had Vietnam. We had Iraq, and we had Afghanistan. Nobody paid the price for that. The same neocons that gave us the Iraq war and its supposed surge were on Fareed Zakaria last weekend telling us why it was going to be different in Venezuela. Somebody got on and said, "Yeah, I remember Colin Powell on the show, and I remember Paul Wolfowitz on the show, telling us that oil-rich Iraq would pay for its own war, and yuck, yuck, yuck. Same person is still on telling us that about Venezuela. That is not going to cost us much in the end of this, whatever we're doing there, which is another question. Then we get to the financial side. Before we get to some of the other things like pandemics and on and on and on. We go to the financial side, and I mean, how long is Jamie Dimon going to be making predictions about the economy? None of his partners paid a price. None of them gave up a single bonus. People know it. People feel it. And when groups feel in a marginal position where they're losing status in the country that they grew up in, famous sociologist calls the people Hillary called deplorables, calls them strangers in their own country. Mrs. Hochschild, the sociologist from Berkeley. Great line. And they paid the price. Their children fought the wars. They lost their jobs. They lost what meager savings they had as we were cheering one trade deal after another. They haven't done very well. And rather than attack the voters for being cynical or attack the parties for trying to cash in on this, we really need to do some major surgery. I will point out, I would include the media in my comments about the elected officials, the appointed officials. Every one of these shocks that we're going to talk about later, they minimized or didn't see coming or ignored. We heard a great deal about the governor of Minnesota during the last campaign. He was supposed to be an everyman for everybody, a sixth grade teacher. He's been there, done that. Nobody talked about the corruption. Like this was not existing when Ms. Harris vetted him. When are they going to get the vetting right? When is the media going to cover it? They were so pro-Harris that it didn't matter who she ran with at that point. They were so interested in beating Donald Trump, I think, to help bring him back. Let's talk about the primaries in New York and other places. When AOC, interesting, you know, we heard that she was just a barista, and she knocked off Mr. Crowley, who was going to be Miss Pelosi's successor. As usual, nobody saw her coming. Then we found out there was an organization of United Socialists in America. We found out she was doing very sophisticated get out the vote efforts, something Crowley never tried. The New York media decided that she won because Crowley was arrogant. Oh, yes, he was. He refused to recognize her. He refused to debate her. They were supposed to believe that hundreds of thousands of voters responded just to that. They didn't see her coming any more than they didn't see Mondami coming. And speaking of Mondami coming, there were maybe 6 or 7 similar primaries in the United States after his primary. And the brave mayor of Minneapolis, who happened, Jacob Frey, who happened to be in the mayor's chair when George Floyd was murdered, and that horrible tragedy that created that horrible summer earlier in Trump's first administration. He had a primary from a member of the city council who was also Muslim and was also a socialist. We had 6 or 7 other of these, and none of them ever get covered. The other night, Jersey City, New Jersey, we had an election, and all of the attention was paid on whether Governor McGreevey, James McGreevey, who resigned in disgrace about 20 years ago, trying to make a comeback. This might be the year of failed gubernatorial ex-governors' comebacks. Nobody pointed out the mayor is aligned with the newly elected mayor who defeated him, Mr. Solomon, councilman, is aligned with the National Socialists, may not be a formal member, but 2 members of the Jersey City Council overwhelmingly elected the other night. So he's got a working majority on the council, whether he is or is not a member of the group. Nobody ever sees this coming. They're always surprised. Finally, let me just make one last comment. I got a call from New Jersey the other night, and he's telling me, well, we don't know if we probably won't redistrict because we've got a safe Democratic legislature, and we have 3 Republicans. I think it's I haven't counted it up. I think it's a delegation of 13, and the Republicans have 3. Well, I said, well, that's because they already did their dirty work. Donald Trump got 40% of the vote in New Jersey, He did half the loss of his previous run. He lost the state by about 14 votes in 2020, and he lost it this time by 6. So from his point of view, he's going the right direction. Then he got 40% of the seats. So he says to me, why should people vote? Over 80% of the American people are in a district that's dominated by the other party. Those maps are drawn by intent. So you feel like you're behind enemy lines. So if you go out and vote, they don't need you. Lois Frankel does not need any more Democrat votes. She wins by 90% anyway. So what are you going to do? What are you going to achieve by voting? And on the other hand, if you're going to vote against her, there's no way you can beat her. Same thing's true in Republican districts. I can pick any district you want. We have to look very hard at this. The only conflict of interest that we allow, unfortunately, we're getting more of them under the national administration. The only one we openly allow are letting politicians pick their voters. We say we have a regulatory system that will stop bankers from making policies, particularly affecting their bank, but that's being eroded too. Now we don't even need the regulatory board. Now the president's getting involved in mergers and acquisitions and Hollywood. These are things to think about before we attack the young people for turning off on our system and before we attack voters for being cynical. I'll yield back, as they say in the House when they used to meet. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alvin. It felt like like we all needed a kick in the pants.
No, we're doing fine.
So that was great. That sounded like
great,
it was
yes.
years of experience lumped up into a few minutes. So thank you. That was great. And we'll come back and address some of those points in a little bit. Sean, my favorite ex-Barry person.
Well, thank you, Steve. And really, I want to yield the time back to Alvin. I want to hear more from the good professor, but we will. And he really threw a lot out there across the spectrum. So it's a little hard to follow up on any one particular theme. But let me put a few things out there, and then again, we'll circle back on some of these. Would you be able to share screen?
Yes.
Looks like, I wasn't going to use slides, but I might put up a couple things up while I talk.
Well, Luis broke the ice on that, so we're good. We're good. So
Okay.
let me pull you up here.
I didn't make anything new, but I had some stuff that again maybe could help us. And while we're doing that, the comment about you know, not only the Mandami victory that the country and the media focused on, but that there are other elections around the country that he mentioned. And, that a Democratic Socialist was elected mayor of Seattle, barely gets a peep with everything else going on. So there is that what's happening at the local level is showing, some of the progressive and activist and young people successes that might give them some skin in the game to see, well, if we actually organize and participate, maybe we can make a difference in elections, and maybe we, there is still hope for the next generation to buy into the political system. The other thing I was going to say real quick, but because it's not relevant here, but when Professor Felsenberg mentioned the mandatory bridge year, I'm all for that. I was just talking to a student about that this morning. So that was interesting that you threw that out there. Probably never going to happen, but certainly necessary. And the other thing, he was talking about the elites, how they've messed up so much. They're always wrong, and no accountability from the housing crisis, from the deregulation of the banks, from everything that's going on in the political system now. And I would say that, as we know, a lot of that's what led to the election of Donald Trump in the first place. As representative of being against the establishment and trying to tear things down. So I'm sharing, and again, I wasn't going to do too much of this, but just to give some context and to think about why people get involved with parties in the first place and where we are right now, and thinking about the turmoil within the parties. Political parties evolved over time because they were necessary and important for organizing work in Congress. We know that politicians get involved in politics through their political parties. Why would other people, why would voters, why would citizens, why would other people get involved with political parties? There's kind of three main reasons to. The first one is if you're one of the professionals, you're making money off of it as a consultant, or trying to get your political party elected. The second one would be you have some sort of cause. People are interested in environmental issues, foreign policy issues, whatever that issue may be, that they feel that they can make a difference, and that could draw them to one party or the other. And the third reason, which we're seeing less of now, but again, hopefully there could be a resurgence, is for solidarity, is for social purposes, is to go to the party meetings, whatever they may be in your county, so that you can find like-minded people, have social relationships, find other political interests, and so on. And so, the parties are certainly changing, and we could look at all these polls that professor referenced, a poll after poll after poll that Americans are frustrated with the political parties. Democrats are frustrated with Republicans and Republicans with Democrats, but also within the parties. You're seeing high levels of people, Democrats frustrated with their own party, Republicans frustrated with their own party. And so all kinds of internal turmoil. Steve had asked us sort of an overriding question, and this is from a Pew Research poll that just came out at the end of October. And again, there's poll after poll after poll talking about how people are frustrated and the levels of frustration are increasing. We're more frustrated with the Democrats than with Republicans. But if we look at this poll from Gallup, which is also recent, poll after poll shows us that historically, the political parties have been unpopular. And amongst the public, both Democrat and Republican parties have been under 50% for the past 20 years. So whether it's a branding issue or a leadership issue, Steve had asked us, are these internal conflicts about policy or leadership style or generational change or competing visions of party identity? And I would say yes, all of those things are going on right now. And so that's what's adding to the turmoil in our political system beyond what was explained by the first speaker of, we're sort of in a period of a great reckoning from the sins of the past political leaders. So again, just a few quick things. So what I'm framing here is we've had two political parties, Democrat and Republican, for more than 150 years, and political scientists talk about just how they realign. We haven't changed the parties, we've just changed the coalitions or factions within the parties. And so we're familiar with the New Deal system, and during the New Deal system, Democrats had control of the House and the Senate for almost the entire 30-year period of the New Deal system. And so it allowed them to get things done with less opposition. Since 1968 onward, we've been in a system that's kind of more or less parity. The Republicans being the party of the South and conservative values, and the Mountain West and of the Bible Belt. Democrats being the party of the big cities and the coastal areas, being more liberal and younger. And the reason why I put this up here is just to see that typically we would have had some sort of significant realignment of our political parties around the year 2000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, but it's unclear whether we have realigned or not, or instead we have dug in to the same system that we've had from this 1968 onward. And part of it is, again, the parties are now relatively equal. We're sort of 50-50 with public opinion, with very tight margins in both the House and the Senate, with party leadership flipping back and forth more times in this century than in the past century. In the early 20th century, Republicans controlled Congress for a majority of the time. In the second half of the 20th century, Democrats controlled for most of the time. But now in the 21st century, we've been going back and forth. And so this potential realignment that we would have seen into this century would have looked like this. I'm not going to read this off, but these are the voters that helped Obama to his big victory in 2008, smaller margin in 2012. And so at the time, Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Democrats thought, okay, we just get this same coalition, get them to turn out in the same way, she would win. All right. And that was the mistake of Clinton, ignoring Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, the blue wall, thinking they were already in the pocket and that they were going out and looking at these younger and newer voters. And lo and behold, those states saw political change because of the changes in the economy, largely because of the trade deals, which again was alluded to in the earlier remarks. And so she didn't win those voters. We didn't have a permanent realignment. And in fact, I didn't even change these or make these for today. These slides I made several years ago during the first Trump term. But if there is a Trump coalition, then the so-called Trump coalition, again, you can see the groups in front of you there that helped put him into office in 2016 and again in 2024. My point being that we're not seeing a change necessarily. We're not seeing a realignment, but what we're seeing are the same groups staying with Democrats and the same group staying with Republicans. The potential change that Trump brought from the Obama coalition is that Trump did much better with Hispanic voters, and especially in 2024 than previous Republican candidates. He did better with Asian American voters. There was the issue of Israel that helped him in 2016, likely helped him in 2024 as well. And so you do have some voters shifting based upon, the appeal of the Trump campaign. But the question is sort of, where do we go from here? We'll stop sharing. Okay. So the Republican Party started with their realignment, not realignment, I would say, 2010 when the Tea Party came up. That's when we see the internal division in the Republican Party that has fully played itself out. I think with the election of Trump, the selection of Vance as vice president, the coalition in the House behind Mike Johnson as speaker, that would be the carrying out of the Tea Party wing of the Republican Party. In the Democratic Party, we have the moderates, again, the Obama Clinton coalition. We're seeing the progressive, the Warren, AOC, now Jasmine Crockett side of things. And they were not making headway in the national party, but they're starting to win some more primaries, have success in local elections. And so sort of all of this to say that both parties are in these internal, divisions right now, where there's a potential for the reshaping or the realignment that we did not get to see over the last couple of years. And part of it has to do with generational change. The Democratic Party held on to its leaders for too long, didn't allow the next wave to come up and develop as soon as they needed to. That caused additional problems there that are just being worked out now. So I think there I'm going to pass it on to
Yeah.
Professor Coakley, and then we'll open it up for questions afterward.
Well, thank you, Sean. I will admit that I had come up with what I thought would be good follow-up questions, and for both of you so far, I've completely changed those questions. So my follow-up. And I do before Kevin starts. I may forget to say this later, but a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, it's already been. Sean and I were on a panel to talk about the U.S. presidency. Do you remember that? And anyway, in a lot of the work I did, what I found was uh, there was the older people here will remember Bill Moyer. He did a series on the 30-second president, the president in 30-second sound bites. And one of the people we interviewed, whether it was Rosser Reeves or one of the other advertising folks, one of them said that and this was back in the 80s, the new political parties are CBS, NBC, and ABC. So you can only imagine how screwed up things are now because we have plenty more than those three networks who are vying from being for being the agenda setters. Anyway, with that, let's go to Kevin. Professor Coakley, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm
Okay.
sorry that my camera's not working. I apologize for that. I don't know why. I tried to get it fixed, but it's not happening. This is not really what I look like. I'm a lot uglier. But in reality, I agree with both of my panel members in that society has changed. And that's really what we're talking about. The idea of political parties and the necessary voice of political parties has changed. We have developed into a media-focused society where we're seeing more and more independent thought based on social media. Whether that's right or wrong, that's to the individual. But in reality, we're getting a description of reality that isn't exactly true either way. So when we talk about the Democratic and Republican Party, we will never lose the two-party system. I'm sorry, I don't believe that we're ever going to have a third-party system or parliamentary system. But the evolution of the parties will continue to evolve. We saw, if we go back in history to Lincoln being a reformist and the Democrats being conservative, or we look at Teddy Roosevelt and the Progressive Party, there's always an evolution into the parties. And I think that's what we're seeing now, but it's exaggerated because of this media empire. We tend to look at what's happening in minute detail. Before CNN, before back in the day, like you said, us older people, I remember watching CBS, Walter Cronkite, 6 o'clock news, telling me about the Vietnam War. Today, we're looking at a 24/7 media cycle where the smallest mistake, the smallest comment is blown up to be a political event. So we're seeing this growing animosity toward politics. And Dr. Foreman and Dr. Friedberg were right in saying that we're seeing this separation of the two parties, we're seeing the separation of people. But in reality, politicians reflect society. In my basic understanding is that politicians believe in two things, votes and money. And when they see those things diverging, they tend to panic. And that's what we're seeing today, is that our society, because of media, has separated to the point where you have no normal discussion. no moderation of this, no discussion of where can we come to the common ground. We're focusing on the middle ground of our political parties, and that is leading to this discourse that we're seeing today. It's frustrating to the young people because they don't see a change. They want to see something that evolves. When I ask my students, what are the major things you would like to see changed in politics? They tell me the same thing over and over again, that there should be an age limit for presidents. There should be a term limit for Congress. There should be a term limit for the Supreme Court. These type of things, they're looking at it from their perspective of a young individual. They are not seeing that their vote counts. And that can go back throughout history. We've always seen the disenfranchised not feeling that they need to vote. And I think that's where we need to change. We need to encourage those that feel they don't have a voice. We need to bring them forward and change this mentality that we have. We are the older, wiser generation. We are the people that should be leading this country. Yes, as I grow older, I worry more about Social Security. I worry more about my involvement in the economy. Young people don't understand that, and they need to be taught that. We need to have that education to them. When we talk about factions, when we talk about the division of our political parties, Madison was right. Factions can lead to the ruin of democracy. If we look back and we read Machiavelli talked about how there's cycles through politics, how we go from dictatorship to democracy to, we fold through these folds. And the reality is we need to grasp what democracy is. We have a changing society. We have a changing environment. Economically, we are a world leader. We need to start thinking about how we're going to adjust our political views to match those of a world economy. We need to start looking at not just what is going to get me votes, but what is going to solve these issues that face us every day. I really, you guys covered everything I wanted to say. I have a list of notes from both of you that I agree with and I wanted to say, so I'm not going to drag this out and repeat what, both doctors have said. But in reality, it comes down to basics. It really does. In reality, we're talking about, what makes society better. If you want to call somebody a socialist, you want to call them names, you want to challenge them, that's kindergarten level. This is elementary school. We have to realize that each individual group, whether it's New York City, whether it's the state, whether it's the country, we choose who leads us. And that should be based on rational choice, not on political rhetoric, not on what people are telling me on social media. I need to have that basic understanding. And that's why I feel that media is the real cause for this discontent. This separation of political views is based not on any ideology, really, but on the acceptance of what media is telling me. When a student tells me that it must be true because 10,000 people said, I like it, that worries me. When I talk to students about different political theories and they don't understand that that applies to today, it's because they're focusing on social media. Those are the type of problems we need to deal with. I'll let that go and let open up the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Coakley. I did want to say, Professor Coakley, that you're 100% correct about Madison. He did not like factions, but to take it a step further, he said they're inevitable, so therefore let's promote them. Would you agree with me, Dr. Coakley?
I agree with you,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
his logic was if there's enough factions, they won't have the effect. What
Right,
I
right.
see is a reduction in factions and a
Mhm.
focusing of groups. And when you reduce the factions, they have a
Mhm.
greater effect on democracy.
If I can add something, he also anticipated that every vote on the House, where he was the first majority leader,
Mhm.
broke down very early, but every vote would have a different coalition.
Mhm.
Didn't
Yes, and
anticipate it. Well, he
that
was
is the
not
basic
effective
idea of the
legislator.
House of Representatives
Right.
is that they represent the people
Yep.
and not these political parties, not these factions, not this society that we have created. And
Yep.
if you look at the House of Representatives, which I focus on, is the reality is they should never be there more than 2 years. Honestly, the idea was to rotate them out, to have a constant flow of new ideas in there. These are the young people coming in with the ideas.
Right.
We have
Right.
created a society where we have people in the House, though some of them are, I agree with, some of them I don't, but they're there for decades.
Yep.
That's a scary proposition.
Mhm.
On the Democratic side, if the Democrats win the House back, is it true that majority of the committee chairs will be over 80?
Mhm.
I believe that they will be, actually.
Close. It's close to that.
I can't give you a solid
Yep.
yes or no, but I believe
Okay.
they will be. And I think that's a problem.
Yep.
I think that one of the problems with both parties is there's not enough involvement with younger people to enter those politics. You know, when you have a entry level for the House of Representatives at 25 and the average age is over 60, there's a systematic problem with this.
Yep.
So, Sean, did you want to weigh in on that or no?
No, I want to hear what questions you have for us.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the oh boy, so many. Where do I start? I maybe I'll do a more of a general question as opposed to targeting it right now. So we all understand, and this is going back to the beginning of this webinar or whatever we call it.
Yeah.
The uh, the moment that we're in now, and the reason we had this webinar tonight, do we look at it or do we understand what's going on as ideological conflict, institutional stress, or leadership failure?
Well, here, let me quickly go and then to the others because what what I would have added on the last one and to this one is really we've got a bunch of structural problems, and both of the panelists mentioned some of them. I mean, the gerrymandering is a problem, and now it's extreme. Interestingly, today in the Indiana State Senate, they rejected a map that would give Republicans an advantage. But in most other states, they're trying to maximize that advantage. In Florida, the governor said blatantly, "Let's wait for the Supreme Court to." He didn't say this part, but hopefully overturn the Voting Rights Act of 1965 early next year, and then we can go at it with redistricting. But anyway, redistricting. And in Florida, we passed Fair Districts Florida. The voters did in 2010, which was, supposed to fix it on paper, but really didn't in practice. Campaign finance, right? That's got to be fixed somehow because even though we have rules, we have ways around the rules. The primary system and the way that parties can manipulate and closed primaries in particular, I think lead to narrow results and term limits potentially on members of Congress. So, so those is the big ones, but we need reforms to the system so that, you know, people can perform in the system that we think, that we expect, that we are thinking of from the past.
I
I
agree
wanted to,
100%. I mean, we're talking about reverting back to the old 1900s, the party bosses, the manipulation, where we come with the term gerrymandering.
Mhm.
I mean, if we
No.
look back at that, it was political manipulation, the idea of going back to Tammany Hall, to the old days, and we're slowly creeping back into that where people are not being counted as a voice. It's being politically manipulated.
so how is gerrymandering different now than it was 20 years ago, we'll say, or, you know, remember what was the case, Shaw versus Reno and
Shaw versus
gerrymandering?
Reno, yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
why is it different now than then?
in Elbridge Gerry's day, you didn't have
Mhm.
primaries.
True,
Why was
true.
Elbridge Gerry important? He
Uh,
was governor of Massachusetts, and he was a friend of Thomas Jefferson, and will eventually be James Madison's second vice president.
Presidents, yes.
And why was he important? He was important because he and his pals figured out how they could draw a map. Jefferson won Massachusetts one time, I believe. I have to check this, so I want to be careful what I say here. Probably because of the Alien and Sedition Acts, which was aimed at people coming in from Ireland and France. And hundreds of people were rounded up under John Adams, and that was that. Gerry figured out how they can get probably all of the seats in Massachusetts to be Democratic, Republican, or whatever Jefferson called himself in those days, without him carrying the whole state and without the vote being proportional. They call it gerrymander. I forgot the name of the paper, but I hang it on the wall when I give my lecture on Congress, because what they did is they took a district, actually looked like a salamander, and
With
they
wings.
with wings, yeah,
With wings. I never understood that.
claws, yes, claws.
mhm.
And you know, well, we have them in New Jersey too. We have a butterfly, we have an alligator, we have a pussycat, and all sorts of things. And so the editor of the paper decided to do a caricature of the governor. So the governor's head was put on a salamander, but
Right.
it was a legitimate district, and the name kind of stuck. He was very good at it. One change we could make, if there was a young Ralph Nader around, and knowing that state legislators respond out of fear because no one's ever heard of them. So the way to scare them to death is to say, well, why don't we have runoffs in your primaries? That would put an end to the splintering. And we'd actually we would have had this in New York City. We wouldn't be talking about socialism if they had a runoff. The same thing would have been true in the, we'll skip over the Iowa caucus. It was such a disaster. We call it the end of the Iowa caucus because of the app not working a second time, but a judge would have won that primary. And so we're not looking at that. But in places like New Hampshire and Florida, you know, people come in, Trump was getting what, 10, 12%. I don't remember the numbers anymore, but then you get one candidate, Carly Fowler was still around. She would get 2%. Even on the way out, Senator Cruz was getting 3 to 5%. Jeb, even when he was collapsing, was getting 4 or 5%. And Trump kept his base all the way through until the end when he started winning big numbers. Runoffs would have helped that. And we don't need a constitutional amendment for that. We need a state statute to be amended. And when it's not first past the post, it's you must get 50% of the vote to be the nominee. End of story. New York is always complicated because they always had cross endorsements. We can spend the whole night on that. And I won't. But that would help greatly for gerrymandering, to end the system of gerrymandering and have kind of an Arnold Schwarzenegger system countrywide. It's interesting to see Schwarzenegger debating with the governor of Massachusetts for of California for taking away his legacy. You could do that you'd have to do it by constitutional amendment. I don't see any other way of doing that. that you can build support for constitutional amendments. We haven't had that many of them, but the ones that we got were come from the bottom up, not from the top down. The women forced, and I always say this in class. The optimist in me comes out. Who gave black people the vote?
Where?
Who gave black people the vote? Class, tell me who. And they would look at me. The answer is white politicians. That's what happened. Who gave women the vote?
Right.
Came
White
down to
men.
Tennessee. Right? It came down to one kid. It was told by his mother, if you don't vote for it, you're not coming over Thanksgiving dinner. You forget about Christmas, right? Well, that's what this happens. When politicians get scared, they actually do the right thing. Scare enough state legislators, this will happen. And maybe we'll get a constitutional amendment that would take care. That's two of the problems I mentioned. Age limit that can be put into the Constitution. One thing I like about the New Jersey Constitution, and some states are beginning to move with this, is they put an age limit. I don't know if it's 70. New Jersey, it's 70. I'd raise that to 75 now that I hit that age.
I agree.
But nevertheless, every governor who comes in knows. You just take out the state legislative manual, find out when these guys were born. Every governor will know how many seats he's got in the Supreme Court, and every opening is not going to start a world war the way we have it every single time we have a vote now. Those three changes would do a great deal.
Alvin, excellent. And Professor Coakley, excellent. And Sean, thank you for weighing in as well. Excellent. Two things. One is, aside from Luis, because I'll call on him in a second, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand, your emoji hand, or you can write a comment or a question in the chat. Luis, your hand's been up for a while, so go ahead.
No, I first of all, I have to tell you that I enjoy very much your three presentations. I think they pretty much complement each other, and I think to a certain extent, I see a consensus, right, in terms of, and I want to just to reinforce that, just a few comments, and then I will end up with a short question, very specific one. First of all, something that I have noticed is that the election of outsiders since 2008, because Obama was an outsider that was very much pushed inside, but his discourse was basically populist. Yes. Change, change, change. So we already have seen when Obama ran that there was this hunger for some sort of change because the political class failed, which seems to me that this is the consensus, right? There is no connection between the constituencies and the elected officials. And the reality is that after Obama ended his 2 terms, we had Donald Trump, another populist, another outsider. So I still remember, because I used to work for the Jewish Federations, how members of Congress used to meet with constituencies. And whether they gave money or didn't give money, of course, they gave priority to those who gave money, but still, there was a dialogue between elected officials and constituencies. And I remember even some elected officials saying, why people are not calling me? Why do I have to vote my conscience? And I'm not hearing from constituencies. They were complaining about it. Now, I'll tell you where I see the point of inflection. That was when the Republicans actually won the House of Representatives and the Senate under the leadership of Newt Gingrich in the House. He installed what is called party discipline. That means, now, we have to have a consensus. We actually follow an ideology, the contract with America. And that basically, the Republican Party became kind of a European party based on party discipline instead of each elected official having a relation with the constituency. And the Democrats basically mirrored that, okay? The same thing. And here we have a situation of polarization. And who are the main casualties? The constituents, the voters, the small guy, right? Or the small guy, the small girl, you name it. Now, Alvin actually mentioned, we have seen people like Crowley, Congressman Crowley, fell to AOC, but we also had seen Eric Cantor fell,
Yes.
and we have seen Elliot Engel also lost the election, somebody who has been there forever. So here is when I say that I'm not sure that I agree with Kevin. I agree with most of what Kevin said, but I'm not sure that the party system will survive just the vote. I believe that eventually the United States is going to move to a sort of multi-party system, because the parties cannot absorb everything without contradictions. They cannot absorb every constituency without contradictions. So I'm not sure that the party system will survive. So I will end up with a question, and it's very interesting, Sean, that you mentioned what happened in Indiana today. Gerrymandering, in my opinion, is horrible for democracy. But today it's interesting that Indiana rejected gerrymandering, and it was the Republicans that rejected, some Republicans who rejected gerrymandering in Indiana. Is very interesting. I wonder whether these Republicans understand what is going on. They understand what is being discussed in this forum tonight. Just a question. You may not have the answer.
Well, someone needs, if one of you three speak up, because I would answer Luis too, but it's your floor.
I'll just quickly, because I want to hear the others. But Luis, I think part of the reason why we have a two-party system in the United States is because of the first past the post election, which Alvin was talking about. And so the electoral system for Congress leads to forming two big coalitions instead of running as several parties. So the electoral system leads to two parties. And the second reason typically had been that we're within a cone of ideology, slightly left, slightly right in the United States, that we have this big middle that, kept the parties relatively ideologically similar. What we have seen more recently, of course, are more ideological candidates. I don't know if we want to call them extreme or not, but more ideological candidates on both parties winning primaries and getting elected.
They are mostly extreme. I agree.
Okay, extremes. So, and in Indiana, maybe it's a matter of their like Midwest. Indiana nice, like Chicago nice, which is Illinois, I know, but the whole idea, they're like, maybe we shouldn't have too much an advantage here. Let's play fair. I don't know. Maybe that's what's going on.
When Trump was elected, a lot of people thought that when we go into the congressional elections, there would indeed be primaries, and perhaps for legislative and other races, some of those people who were not successful nationally would have their imitators run for Congress. What we saw was the president go out and get a candidate to run in a primary to discipline the incumbent. Franklin Roosevelt tried that in 1938 after the court packing disaster. He won one of the biggest margin in American history in 1936. 2 years later, he decided he would go to pack the Supreme Court, and he failed to get that, and he was a sore loser. He went around the country. He targeted a dozen people in Democratic primaries. I gave you Social Security, I gave you TVA, I gave you unemployment compensation, I gave you bank insurance, FDIC, blah, blah, blah. I'm your hero. I'm fighting for you. Vote against this guy who's blocking this change. He knocked off one person in the primary. Now we have a situation where people are siding with the president against their own voters. Case in point, Senator Cassidy from Louisiana. 95% of this is a red state. 95% of his hospitals depend on the survival of Medicaid in rural Louisiana. He was the determining vote for Bobby Kennedy Jr. because he didn't want a primary. Well, he's at it again now. Now that Bobby Kennedy showed where he is standing on vaccinations, Cassidy is getting very good at impersonating Susan Collins by telling us how concerned he is. He was the deciding vote. He's yet to stand up and say, I want to take my vote back. I want to see Kennedy come before this committee. I want to threaten impeachment if I can. I want to stand up for my constituents who are going to be thrown off health care. Some of his people are going to die because of this. He raises the question about measles. People are dying of measles again. We're seeing break out in other diseases we thought we had eradicated. He's so terrified of his president. What does it say about the importance of the office? He's siding with his president against his constituency. That is new. We have seen presidents try to purge their party before. He's been amazingly successful at this. So I don't know where we're going with that. I don't know what it tells us. I hope that's not a prototype of what's going to happen. I fear it might be. Now, Indiana, yes, I want to get one quick point. When the history of this is going to be written up, I'd love to see if there was a hidden hand of Mike Pence somewhere. He was governor of that state. He wrote a lot of maps. He has a sense of integrity, says the John F. Kennedy School of Government. He knows what to do the right thing. He's probably a martyr in his own state right now. And it would seem to me that he's had a role in steadying this. And it might be able to bring back a little more old-fashioned pluralism, at least on the right. He's an old-fashioned conservative. He believes in checks and balances. He doesn't believe in plebiscitary democracy. Neither did Madison. So he was so terrified of that. They hated the mob. They hated these kind of rallies, the founding fathers. They lived through a lot, including the Whiskey Rebellion and several other things. I just have a feeling we're going to see a few more states do this, where we have the old-fashioned kind of Buckley, Goldwater conservatives versus the autocrat who's posing as a populist or maybe even a real populist. I don't know. I just leave it with that.
Thanks. Before
John Levine has a question.
No, before Joel speaks, I wanted to ask two things. One, I wanted Professor Coakley to weigh in if he wants to, but then one of my students is here and he has a question, and I wanted to read his question. So, Professor Coakley, did you want to weigh in?
Well, I honestly, my view is there is no real populist vote anymore. Lewis talked about, Obama and Trump. I don't believe they are populist votes. I think they are manipulated by the media. And Donald Trump was not a populist person until he became a television person. And Obama did not become a populist person until he became a magnet toward the convention for the Democratic Party. So the idea of a populist president, I think, has died out. I think it's more of a manipulation of how we perceive the presidents. As far as the elections for Congress and those parties, yes, there is a sway here where we're talking extremist views. We tend to categorize and we tend to pinpoint people as they're a socialist, they're a fascist, they're this, they're that. We're not looking at a general whether they will focus on the people, but we're categorizing them in extreme categories. And I think that's a problem that we're facing in this country, and it will affect our democracy in the future. Please go ahead and ask your question.
And before my student, I just wanted to say, Alvin, that I think you mentioned rebellions. I think the rebellion of all rebellions led to the Shays Rebellion, was sort of a catalyst leading into addressing the Articles of Confederation. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. So my student, unless where is it? Here it is.
Your student is Nicholas.
Yeah, Nicholas. So if you want to ask your question, you can, or I could just read it. It's up to you. I'll read it then. Nicholas asks, I know you mentioned about third parties maybe not coming to the forefront within elections. Uh, do you see that maybe changing within 20 years or sooner? Third parties.
No, I don't. If you're
Mhm.
asking in general, I do not believe that. We've seen third parties. I think third parties have a functional
Mhm.
uh, ability in
Yeah.
our two-party system to
Mhm.
create a balance.
Mhm.
If you look at things like somebody mentioned earlier, Ralph Nader with the Green Party, having those points put into a political platform for one of the major parties, or if we look, I mean, think about this. Back in 1900, we're talking about the Progressive Party, the
Mhm.
Bull Moose Party, Progressive Party, and their radical ideas, such as an 8-hour workday, women having the right to vote and own property, the right to a state or a federal income tax, things like that, they have become part of our society. So third parties do have a function. I just don't think they'll ever have a political leadership in our country until unless we change from a first past the post system.
Uh,
Okay, thank you. Now, Joel, you're up. Unless someone else wants to comment. I didn't mean to interrupt the panel.
one quick thing. You
Yeah.
mentioned Ralph Nader and his influence. We think of Florida, and there's always the question: would he have gotten out? Would Al Gore have won the state? Historically, this has happened a little bit in state elections, much more. Those of you who have studied New York, the role of the Liberal Party in New York became a vehicle to purge Tammany Hall of some of the more sinister elements and get New Deal progressive looking candidates. And they have cross endorsements. Those times the Liberal Party did not support the Democratic candidate. That made real news. It often cost their defeat. And conversely, the Conservative Party mirrored it as they were trying to push the Republican Party in New York to the right of Nelson Rockefeller. They would withhold endorsements and that would elect a Democrat in certain seats, and suddenly they would come to terms. I don't think it would work at the national level. I don't hear you. Your mic's.
Yes.
I guess I'm part of the crowd now. I mute myself and forget to unmute. Joel, you're up.
Well, it's a good thing you called on me when there's only a little time left because I disagreed with almost everything that's been said for an hour and a half. Starting with my irreverence towards the founding fathers, a group of slave-holding, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, anti-Catholic assholes. But what I wanted to say was I think that the senior set that we are missing what's really going to happen, which is that there are going to be third and fourth and fifth parties. I used to live in England, for those of you who know me, which is first past the gate. This worship, first past the gate. Well, I don't know, people are noticing how many political parties there are in England and how uh, much the next election in England between the Liberal Party, which is now coming in as the third party, and the Reform Party are upsetting the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, not to mention the Scottish National Party, which has seats, and Union Party has seats, and the Green Party has seats, and the Welsh National Party is going to get some seats. And I think that ideology has nothing to do with the junior set, that those under 35 don't rise to ideological, and they don't care about the word socialist, which has been tossed around in a way that is it has no meaning at all. But and I think people knew when people said they were socialist mayor of Milwaukee for 30 years. People know what socialist is. What socialist in America is basically minimum wage, better working conditions, Social Security. Look at Deb's platform. It looks like the platform of the Republican Party of the 1960s. Anyway, I think there's going to be third and fourth and fifth parties because I don't think either of the parties can hold their center. And I think that slowly and then things where they go slowly and then everything all of a sudden breaks. I can't remember who said that. Somebody talks about that. You're going to see, as you saw with Murkowski in Alaska, with King in Maine, with Mondani, with various others. There's suddenly going to be a splinter left or right here on each party side, and younger people aren't committed to an ideology. They're committed to specific issues, and those issues are very, very complex, and they don't match the traditional issues of the Democratic and Republican Party because the economy doesn't. What people do in this country is not the whole economy. The global economy is mainly determinative of the American economy, and the environment is not what's done here. It's worldwide, and kids, not this room, which has never mentioned the environment, because
Joel, do you have a question? Do you have a question?
yeah,
We're coming down the end. So.
well, it's a comment. I think that that we have missed the entire thing of what's going on in politics, which is a multi-party emerging consensus in the United States. And just like AI suddenly came, suddenly it's going to be here, and that'll be our new country.
Well, some of us
multi-party consensus, you say?
What?
Multi-party consensus? Is this what you're saying?
I think multi-party fact. It's going to be multi-party, just like France and England. And
okay.
You mean,
so there will be a multi-party system. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't they have to get through, I mean, as we operate now, it's hard to get a third party for many reasons, but one reason is you have to get on the ballot of every state. Right. Elections are local.
No,
so that's
for Congress and for Senate, you don't. And that's where it'll start.
Okay. Listen, and thank you, Joel, for that. You write exactly the same way. We always look forward to you writing for the center. I wanted to, we're coming down the home stretch and we have some great questions. So what I'd like to do, we're toward the end, I wanted to have each of you spend a minute for a conclusion if you want, but can you see the questions on the board or no? Because and let me just read them. There are 3 questions here and I just want to read them. And then if you want to address them, if not, we'll get them out there and maybe we can respond at a later date somehow. So Rebecca Eisen writes, how has the cost of campaigns forced congressmen to fall in line to keep power as opposed to voting to help the populace? So, secondly, Jack Carrico, I hope I pronounced your name right, Jack. As a political consultant for nearly 20 years, my observation is that the loss of political civility and compromise dating back to Clinton-Gingrich tug of war has become more acute, creating greater polarization, which is leading to further disenfranchisement from voters. Partisan political media has reinforced this schism. I'm also afraid of the future of U.S. politics. And then Uzi Baram, a friend from the west coast of Florida, the amounts of money going into campaigns is astonishing, but it only seems to generate apathy for the public and frustrating by candidates. Yet each cycle, the numbers get higher and higher. Been a great conversation, but I have to go. So I guess he left. So with that, why don't you each take a minute and give some last minute comments, and then we'll do our closing. And that'll be it. So Alvin,
I'll just jump in real fast. I talked too much tonight, but a lot of this gets back to the Citizens United decision.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you can limit or even ban certain kind of groups from giving campaigns. They don't want it. The congressman will never give up PACs. They all
Yeah.
talk about reforming. They all have a better bill.
Yeah.
When it comes to primaries, the president of the United
Mhm.
States seems to have an unlimited war chest to get challengers to people who he doesn't like, as we saw in several primary elections. That keeps the fear going. Money is a source of a lot of evil, and particularly true in politics. Why would people give $50,000 or God knows what to political PACs? They want something. You and I don't have
Right.
that kind of clout. So we all are equal. We all have one vote,
Mhm.
theoretically.
Yeah.
My vote
Yeah.
would cancel out
Yeah.
yours,
Yeah.
except you can buy all the money. You got the microphone, blah blah blah. So we can deal
Mhm.
with that decision somehow. That would pass some kind of constitutional muster. I'd be very happy.
Okay, great. Sean, make it good. Your mother's here.
Civility is really a problem, that's for sure. One of the polls that I was going to point out before showed Republicans, 57% of Republicans saw Democrats as enemies as opposed to opponents. More thought they were enemies than an opponent. Democrats think of Republicans as enemy too. So, we have that kind of language and the high charged rhetoric of the campaigns. That's the problem. I'm a little hopeful of the city of Miami election for mayor this week. It was for mayor.
Mhm.
I was talking about all week to
Right.
different reporters, but it was a nasty campaign. But at the end, the candidates were civil to each other, and and they connected based upon things that mattered to local voters. So anyway, I was going to say that. Of course, the money is a huge problem, and Joel, we should have a whole nother topic where we address what Joel was talking about.
Yeah.
I used to think we would see more parties, but again, structurally goes against it. Social media allows for now the proliferation of these messages and quickly mobilize. But I think and money allows you to help create a group. But I think the counter is people with money will not allow minor parties to spring up to be competition. So I just think they get smashed out wherever they're a potential problem to the big parties moving forward.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks.
And Professor Coakley.
I just have to agree with both of my compatriots. I think Citizens United was a terrible result, and I think that the money that's being poured into politics has really isolated the average voter as opposed to corporate purchasing of votes. I also agree that I was very happy with Miami's decision. Local elections, the more I examine local elections, the more I see that civility. The problem is, once we get past that local election, we start seeing this more corporate greed and more animosity. And as you said, I've read the same poll you did, Dr. Foreman, where we're talking about you're not my competitor, you're my enemy. When we start looking at society as I'm versing you in a war, you're my enemy, you're not willing to compromise, that's where we're going to have the problems. I don't believe we'll wind up with a third party, but I do think we'll wind up with a dysfunctional two-party system. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
wonder,
Thank you.
I wonder what is worse, the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court or the decision on gerrymandering?
That'd be a great.
It's a good question.
That's a flip of the coin,
That's
Louis. That's a flip of
There's
the
a
coin.
there's an article. There's a paper there. Go ahead.
Steve, I don't know. I don't know if your student is still on or any other students are still on.
Well, he's still there. He's still
All right.
there.
Well, I would say to any student who asks me about getting into politics, I mean, it's not what it was when we started. We had great causes. We had the environment. We had civil rights. We had all sorts of things. And then you find out when you get there, you're one of 1,000, you're one of 100, you're one of 450 or 435. And your vote it gets cast. Sometimes you can do some things with hearings. Sometimes you can do a special bill. Sometimes you can help a particular person because you were there. If I was starting out again and I wanted to get into politics, I would look at local government again and take it very seriously. It's the least glamorous. It's the place where you can really have an impact. I think I accomplished. I know my resume looks, and I'm very proud of some of the things I did. But I can tell you, I felt more efficacious when I worked in the governor's cabinet and the sub cabinet than when I worked at the White House.
Mhm.
Never saw what happened to the reports I wrote. Some of them
Yeah.
became policy, some of them did not. And you don't stay there long enough to see it to the end. As Obama and Biden can say, why are these infrastructure bills never shovel ready? We get to Ezra Klein's new book about why does it take 1,000 years to build a bridge? They built the Pentagon in what, 13 months? And what order is the problem here? I didn't feel that when I worked in the state. I could pick a phone up and call the division director and get things moving. So I would look at that again, and maybe that's where democracy will start. Maybe that's how it started originally with the New England Town Meeting. I rest my cases.
Thank you, Alvin.
I agree with you, Alvin.
Yes, I'd like to say that I wish, first of all, I thank everyone for coming. I thank our panelists. This was an hour and a half. It could be 3
Michael
hours.
Landau actually wrote Vietnam, whatever that means.
Oh,
Well, I was, I think I know what he was talking about. In our age group, Vietnam was something that I did sit-ins when I went to Temple University, my first year of college. We had a sit-in at Temple University over Vietnam. We stood behind something. We didn't fall apart. We had the constitutional amendment to lower the voting age. I voted in 1972 at age 18. We did a lot of good things without wanting to overthrow the government, so to speak, without wanting to tear the government apart or protest. Maybe that's what he's talking about.
Mhm.
But Michael, we can talk more about that tomorrow at the dog park. But Michael and I go back to nursery school. So I wanted to thank everyone. We really should schedule at some point a follow-up to this because I had more questions, others did. I know, and I just to go back to the beginning of this with Luis and his opening comments. We do unbelievable work here. Look at this event with great professors, great scholars, and a terrific audience. And it doesn't come cheap. We have to maintain this. So as Luis noted, log on to our website, and most of you already are on our mailing list. But if you want to, you can make a donation. You'll receive a nice thank you letter. Michael does, and this is not groveling for dollars. This is an organization that we want to continue to succeed. We've been around for a number of years, and it will continue with programs like this, with people who write for us, like Joel Levine and others who've written for us. We do excellent work. So, and this tonight's program is an excellent example of what we do here, and we thank the panelists. You guys are terrific. Sean and Alvin have spoken here before, and Professor Coakley, I'm sure you'll be back. And with that, I wish everyone a good night. And to my wife Jane, I'll see you in about 10 seconds. And that's it. And thank you, Luis, also for being a great partner.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
very
thank
much.
all the panelists, Kevin, Sean, and Alvin. You were terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
And good night, Mrs. Foreman. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.